Good morning, Rabotai. Welcome to Breakfast in the Class. Learning for this week is dedicated by Torah Center Silver Dawn and Miro Nisim in memory of all those who perished on October 7th and all the fallen soldiers since then who have given their life to protect us in the state of Israel. Chazak Baruch. Also, the Breakfast in the Class dedicated in loving memory of Shalom Shirazi, Lava Shalom, Nishmat Shalom Ben Khatun Bisason, for his second Askara dedicated by his son Yaakov Shirazi. Also dedicated in loving memory of Joe Dura, Lava Shalom Nishmat Yosef Ben Chenya, may his neshama have an aliyah. Also, thanks to the rabbis for their beautiful words of Torah each day, Claudia and Marcus Dura and family. Breakfast in the Class dedicated for the speedy and complete for Shema, for Eliyahu Shimon Mazan, for Otunei and Chana Batzim Fega. And the week of Cobra was sponsored by David E. Ash in honor of you, your substantial capacity to do good today and every day. My friends, let us begin. The Haftarah this week is a magnificent piece. It tells us the story of Shimshon's birth. Shimshon was one of the great judges of the Jewish people. He was called Shimshon HaGibor, Shimshon the mighty. Now his mother and his father, whose names were Manoach and Eshet Manoach, Manoach and Mrs. Manoach, but we know from Chazal that Mrs. Manoach's name was Tzlel Ponit. Anyway, they are unable to have children for many, many years. Then one day, Eshet Manoach is out in the field, and suddenly, Vayira Malach Amunai Ela Isha, Vayomer Elea, and an angel came to her and he said, Hinena at akara velo yaladit v'harit v'yaladit ben. You're going to become pregnant and you're going to give birth to a son. And he tells her, be very careful. Don't drink wine. Don't become tameh. What is he basically telling her? Ki hinnecha harav yulad ben. You're going to have a child and a razor shall never come upon his head because he's going to be a Nazir from the minute he's born until he dies. Okay? Anyway, she gets home. She tells her husband. Her husband's like, wow, that's unbelievable. Oh, you mean to tell me that we're going to have a son after all these years? Who told you? Malach told me. Really? What did the Malach tell you? She tells him what the Malach said. Manoach says, 1 second, please Hashem, have the angel come back and explain to us what to do. I get what she's supposed to do, but what's going to be with this kid? What are the laws? And Hashem answers him, and the angel comes back again. Okay? Angel tells him again, I told her that, she has to have all these prohibitions in place because she's going to give birth to a baby who's going to be a Nazir, and he's going to wind up saving the Jewish people from the Pilishtim at the time. And you'll see this prophecy is going to become true. They finish, the angel ascends in the fire to Shamayim. They realize that it's not a prophet or a rabbi, but a malach. They throw themselves down on the floor. They thank Hashem. And Baruch Hashem, Shimshon HaGibor is born to this couple. My friends, I want to share with you a beautiful teaching, a crazy teaching. This story of Shimshon and his father Manoach, the Gemara tells us something unbelievable. All those years that Manoach and Tzlel Ponit are unable to have children, the Gemara in Baba Batra says on page Sadi Aleph, it's brought down in Osrot Pinei Torah, he brings this magnificent piece. The Gemara over there says that a fellow that we just met lived also during the time of Manoach. Can you guess what his name was? We just met him. Nope. Who did we meet yesterday afternoon before Mincha? Boaz. So we have Megillat Ruth yesterday. We have tomorrow the Haftarah. And these two people that seemingly have nothing to do with one another, actually the Gemara tells us, were in the same neighborhood. They hung out together. Anyway, listen to this. Gemara says, not only did Boaz live during this time, Boaz was the Gadol Ador, he was the great leader of the generation. He was very wealthy. He had many children and he was very old. How many children, how many sons and daughters did Boaz have? 30 sons and 30 daughters throughout his life. I mean, maybe he was married to many people. We know that when he marries Ruth, in the story of yesterday, how long is he married to Ruth for? One day. He dies the next day. What does he have? What did they have from that child? From that marriage? They're zochet to have a child that ultimately becomes the Oved, which becomes the great grandfather of David HaMelech. But fellas, let me share with you the Gemara Baba Batra. Gemara says, every time Boaz would have one of these 60 children, what did he do? He made two parties. He made a party in the house of his father, and he made a party in the house Echad Bet Aviv, Echad Bet Hamiv. One house in his father's, one party in his father's house, one party in his father-in-law's house. He made a kiddush, a sebet. They sang Ya Ya Hidram. Okay? I don't know if everyone knows what that is anymore. Used to be at the sebets. It wasn't a sebet unless you sang Ya Ya Hidram Le'olam Le'olam. Right? Today, no, the guys don't even know what that is. Back then, you had to do the sebet over again if you didn't sing Ya Ya Hidram. Okay? So he did a party. Listen to the Gemara. The Gemara says, this man, Boaz, made sure that of all the 60 parties, he never invited Manoach. Why? Because he said, Chudanta akarta be'mai parali. This pereda, this, so to speak, this donkey, was unable to have children. This pereda akara, be'mai para tifrali. How's he going to pay me back with an invite to one of his parties if he has no children? So on the surface, that sounds like incredibly cruel. I'm not inviting this guy to my party because he doesn't have kids. He's not going to invite me to his party. You have to remember who we're talking about. We're talking about Boaz, who's a Gadol Ador. It can't be that Boaz just didn't invite this guy. You know why? Manoach. Because he was not going to be able to invite him back. However, the Gemara tells us, whatever the reasoning is, Boaz paid a very heavy price. Every single one of these 30 sons and daughters, 60 children, every single one of them passed in his lifetime. Why? Because Manoach was insulted, Manoach was hurt, and when you hurt someone's feelings, it's like playing with fire. So we have here a little bit of a problem. On the one hand, we see that Boaz paid a terrible price, which means that he did something wrong. On the other hand, we think to ourselves, how can it be that Boaz was so insensitive that he was willing to hurt Manoach's feelings repeatedly? And the Chachamim say something unbelievable. The Ben Yoyadar says, the Ben Ishchai, that really Boaz's intention was l'shem shamayim, was for the sake of heaven. He did it for the right reason. He thought to himself, here's a guy and his wife, they're unable to have even one child. Is that what I should do? Invite them to one Brit Milah, after another Sebet, after another... How difficult might that have been for them? So you know what? Out of care, out of concern, out of sensitivity, I'm not going to invite him. Says the Ben Yoyada, but then why was he punished? The answer is, since Manoach did not know his intentions, Manoach was free in his imagination to imagine that the reason why he wasn't inviting him was because he would never be able to pay him back. Now, Manoach, right, Boaz and Manoach, that was his reasoning. He not in a negative way, in an insensitive way, but in a sensitive way. How's the guy going to invite me back? How will he feel if he comes? I'd rather not embarrass him. I'd rather not make him feel hurt. But since he didn't communicate it with him, and Manoach was hurt, he paid a terrible price. My friends, the first lesson that we learn from this Gemara is how important Ben Adam Havero is, and how dangerous hurt feelings can be in terms of the onesh that they bring, the punishment that they bring with them. But my friends, I want to illustrate also the flip side of this idea. Boaz eventually has a child that does live after, and does not die in his lifetime, so to speak. It's also not born in his lifetime, but a child that does not die in his lifetime. Ready for this? Which child? Child from Ruth. What gives Boaz the zechut to have this child? If the mistake was, right, chudanta akarta b'may parali, what is this person who has no children, how's he going to invite me back? If that was the problem, whether, as we saw in the Ben Ish Chai, it was real or imagined, what's the turnaround? What's the tikkun? When he sees Ruth HaMoabiyah, a woman who doesn't have a cent to her name, a woman who's a gioret, she doesn't have anyone she's connected to, she has no sway, it's not going to come back to help Boaz in any way, shape or form. But he goes to the Ne'arim, to the sharecroppers, and he tells him, let her collect ben amarim v'lo tachlimua, don't embarrass her. Going all the way the extra mile to ask his young men that were working the fields, let her share in your meals. Don't embarrass her. From someone that could never give him anything back. That, my friends, was the tikkun of the mistake, the fix of the mistake that he made. And from that fix, from that tikkun, what does he merit? He merits the thing that he was punished for, that was withheld from him all his life. My friends, when a person sees that something is going wrong, it's our job to try and figure out what could we do to change the story, to turn it upside down, to do things a little bit differently. Boaz was Sadiq, but my friends, when it comes to Ben Adam Mechavero, it's very difficult because people are sensitive and feelings get hurt and things aren't taken in the way that you mean them. You know, we read about another such example of someone who's a tzaddik, who's l'shem shamayim, but pays a terrible price. And that is in the story of Chana and Penina. Chana was unable to give birth to children. Penina is teasing her every year, asking, what are you buying your kids for the holiday? You know, what kind of clothes? The rabbis tell us, what kind of rasha does that? And they answer that Penina was a Shem Shamayim Nitkavna. She knew that Chana was praying, but she felt like if Chana prayed with more intensity, or with more devotion, or with more heart, or perhaps with a more broken heart, then she would eventually get blessed with the children that she wanted. So Penina did what sometimes we would call tough love. Someone comes to you and they tell you, you know, it's so this, it's so that, it's so difficult. And 50 times you said, "Ay, I'm so sorry, oh." So what do you tell the guy if you care about them? Stop whining. Stop kvetching. Do something about it. That's what Penina's intentions were with Chana. But when you hurt someone's feelings, it doesn't matter what you intended. What matters is that their feelings are hurt. And if they don't respond to you, who responds on their behalf? HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When a person sometimes finds difficulties in their life, one of the things we can do is ask ourselves, is there something in our past that we could do to rectify our mistakes? Not necessarily that we're being punished for, but that beracha is not coming because there's something that's holding the door shut. And when we flip that story and do things in the opposite way, when Boaz goes and he sees someone that can't do anything for him, and he goes the extra mile to make sure that she's not embarrassed, that they give her things that he doesn't have to give her, to collect elements of shikha, peret, leket, no problem, she's entitled to. But to say that she's able to collect between the sheaves, to say that they have to share their lunch with her, Boaz didn't need to do. So he went the extra mile in the opposite direction. Used to have an anger issue, go the opposite direction. Used to be impatient, go the opposite direction. Used to be carefree about kosher, become strict about kosher. Lashon hara, become the person that's always complimenting and always runs away whenever there's Lashon hara being spoken in a room, in a setting. Go the extra mile in the opposite direction. And then what happens? Suddenly you see the sunlight penetrating the clouds. My friends, I want to share one more beautiful idea. You know, if you look in the story in the Haftarah, we find that Manoach, when his wife comes home and she says, the angel came and the angel told me, don't drink wine, don't become tameh, because we're going to have a son who's going to be a Nazir. Manoach's like, Hashem, please, you need to send us to Malach. We need to figure out what's going on over here, what's going to be with this kid. Please come tell me the story. And the angel comes back. What does the angel say when the angel comes back? I told your wife. You want the instructions? I gave them to her. And he repeats himself almost verbatim. So what did Manoach, what was he asking for? And if he didn't understand the question, what the Malach was saying the first time, why did he understand it the second time? Many people ask this question. One of the answers to this question is that the second time, the angel said to Manoach, he says, Mikol asher amarti el ha'isha tishamer. From everything I said to the woman, tishamer. Tishamer could literally mean she should be careful. But according to some Mefarshim, tishamer means, Rav Schwab once explained, tishamer means you should be careful. So before, all he told was the woman to keep these laws. Eshet Manoach. Now he told Manoach, you have to keep them. According to this, some Mefarshim answer that what Manoach was asking is not what did you the Malach say, but what Manoach was asking is, how do you raise a kid who's a Nazir his whole life? There's no one else that the kid could learn that from. He has no role models. How do you raise a kid to do that? He won't rebel. The Malach says, I told your wife to stay away from all these things. But what I meant was, of course, tishamer you too. And if the child grows up in a house like that, where he sees his mother and his father keeping all the laws of Nazirut every day, wine, no shechar, okay, no tum'ah, no, when the child sees that, then he'll be able to replicate what he sees in his parents' house. So Manoach's question really was, you told my wife not to do it, but the child, if he's going to be a boy, who's he going to learn how to be a man from? Me. But you never commanded me. The Malach says, you're right, but that's what I meant. I meant tishamer you too. My friends, I learned from this something so beautiful, but something so simple. Ultimately, in the end of the day, what allows a child to be a sensitive, kind child, to be a child that cares about the feelings of others, to be someone that's welcoming, someone that's non-judgmental. Where does a child get that from? He's not born with that kind of an neshama or a heart. He mimics that heart from the house that he grows up in. He sees, do we invite people to Shabbat in this house? Doesn't matter how much space you have. Do you invite people to your house? How do you treat them when they come? Do you, at the end of the meal, after 45 minutes, do you say, okay, That's enough. We need to go to bed now. All right, thank you so much for coming. I knew someone that used to say, thank you so much for coming. Thank you even more for leaving. Ha 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 ha. You said it as a joke. But what'd you make the guy feel after you invited him to your house? Like he was a burden. What does a child pick up? It's okay to make jokes and hurt people's feelings because it's only a joke. Our kids, my friends, they watch us. They see us. And when they see us, they learn how to behave and how to be. My friends, Boaz lost so much because of this mistake. But he was able to, in one action, turn the whole story around. What action could we do that could rewrite our previous mistakes and guide us on a path to unbelievable beracha, to magnificent kapara, and into a beautiful and more bright future? Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen. Rabbi Chananya.